scheduled, but I still need to go through the actions.
What's the point
And
of
we're
schedule?
live.
We're live. Hi. We we have quite the audience here today.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
An all-star team.
We've moved from 2 people to 5 people. It's really nice.
Yeah.
We only get 3 minutes of banter this time because Billy said we're not allowed to have any more. So I do have to take this time though to give you a very, very special award.
Okay.
Did you know that this was coming?
No.
Okay. So this past week, Toby, you performed so poorly during fantasy football that you get the Toilet Bowl award for last place. So I want to give that to you. If you could keep that right next to your lemon water. Congratulations.
The award was tired of staying on your desk. So.
Yeah, I had it last week. But good thing is we didn't have a show last week, so it's now your award. And congratulations.
That
but
is
I do
the
believe
worst I've done in fantasy ever.
Be honest with you, it's the worst anyone has ever done on Detroit Labs. You had 66 points.
Relax.
No, seriously. I'm being serious. I'm pretty sure it is the worst ever.
Thanks, Cam Newton.
60, yeah, well, you drafted him. That was foolish.
It was auto draft. But I benched him. Jimmy G is on.
That's your new Tom Brady.
Yeah, on to San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's how Bill Belichick would look at it.
Yeah.
On to the next
it's your
game.
new Tom Brady.
Yeah. Golden. And I know you have Tom Brady.
Yeah, I got Tom Brady. I'll take half your team for him.
Oh, please.
You're gonna irrationally trade me half of your team just so you can get your boy Brady.
You want Jules? I have Jules.
Who?
Julian Edelman.
They call him Juice?
Jules.
Oh. You
Tom
have Edelman?
Brady's. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't
of
want
course. I will always have a Patriot somehow, some way.
Is he the only Patriot you have?
Right now, yes.
Yeah, I don't want him.
At the end of the season, I'll have like 3.
Well, they'll have gone through 7 running backs at that point in time, so you'll have every one of them.
No.
With all your RB1s that you have.
Son of Michelle.
Is that? But is he splitting carries?
No, it's not.
What about
Sometimes
Burkhead?
but that is like when
is James White still on the team, or is he gone?
I think he's still on.
So we've just listed 3 running backs that he may be sharing.
Sonny Mitchell does not. He has enough carries that I'm happy with him. Like 15 points
Oh
per
my
game.
God. I thought you said courage. I was like, what are you talking about courage? You watch a lot of interviews with him or something?
Yeah. No. I just love watching their games. They have the most complete team. Defense, offense, special teams.
Yeah, but okay. You just picked all the winners. You're like you're bandwagon. I'm just saying.
No.
I'm just saying.
I like quality over.
I mean, we all like quality, but we have the Lions, so we get what we get, and we don't throw a fit. That's
right.
my son saying. Because that's what he's been told.
I get to Tom Brady's
Michigan
Michigan
live here
quarterback. So
yeah, okay, but you live here now.
I still root for the Lions. What a great comeback last weekend against the Chargers.
I mean,
excellent.
I mean, it was there. It happened, but I don't know about great.
It was a great comeback.
I mean,
relax.
It was serviceable.
You said I don't root for them. Now I'm like.
All right, Billy's already looking at the clock. We just hit 3 minutes, and we're already told that we can't banter anymore.
I'm gonna put this behind this.
No. Have it prominent. We'll put it right up front there. It looks nice for you.
I would bring.
And welcome back to Labs Live, because we're getting started now because we're 3 minutes in, and right. I don't want to get in trouble by our audience. I'm Dan.
Toby.
Oh, I didn't know you were gonna say it.
Oh, Toby.
Okay, it's Toby. I'm not even going to introduce the show because we're episode 6, so the world knows who we are now.
We're global.
Yeah.
Watch all over the world. That's
I don't know
not
that that's not that's true. Is it true?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have friends outside.
And they watch it on?
Of course.
Oh, we don't need to introduce the show. We are big. Don't forget to subscribe. So if you are tuned into this and found it through our social media, go and subscribe, and you have to hit the bell icon to be notified, because then you know when we upload not just Labs Live, but also regular videos.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Like our little promos.
Oh, those are nice.
Yeah, those are fun.
Nice.
They're fun. Also, the show will be available after. So if you're watching this, you don't necessarily go check it out after, unless you're Toby and assessing performance. But
everybody watches video. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, but you should still go, tell a friend to go watch it after that. Also, we've got new mics. Whole new setup here. It's really nice. Hopefully it works really better. We're getting big time. Toby signed an agent.
Oh, yeah?
So,
Dave, is your mic working?
We're not 100%
yes.
sure.
Yes.
Okay, good.
That's been a little up and down all morning. So also, there's a little chat room. If you have any questions for anybody on the show today, you can ask them in there. Dave will do his best to find them and read them or ignore them, depending on how good they are. Today's guest is Anne Cahalan, iOS developer, and she's going to be talking about server-side Swift.
Exciting.
So, Swift,
Swift.
not Taylor.
Not Taylor.
But like the iOS version of Swift. How many people have made that joke? A million people.
I made it like 5 times.
Did it hit?
Today.
Did it hit? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
It wasn't very good. But first, before we get into that, the news. It's a short news today. Rather short news, I suppose. So the iPhone 11 launched. Mm-hmm. Are you excited? You have an iPhone 4.
I have a 6S. But that was because
Wait, is it actually a success?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Touch ID, I could not. Yeah. Lauren agrees with me.
But iPhone 8 had Touch ID.
Well, yeah. Well. To each his own.
Okay. Wait. Did you order one of the new ones?
Not yet, but I'll probably do that this weekend.
Which one are you getting?
11.
Not
11 Pro. 11 Pro.
Oh,
I take that back.
Jeez.
11 Pro.
I don't even know
Pro.
you.
It looks good.
Yeah.
It looks good. The camera looks nice.
What color are you getting?
Space gray.
Oh, live a little.
Same color as my laptop.
I know, but get a little spicy. Live a little. I got midnight green.
Midnight. Oh.
Oh, it's gonna be
You
fancy.
do have a watch that matches that, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Now I can only wear that watch. I've put baby into a corner. Can't do that. All right. So I ordered a Pro. You ordered a Pro, or you're gonna order a Pro.
I'm gonna order.
So so
it's an excuse to go to the mall. I'll probably go to the Apple Store.
Yeah. You do a little shopping otherwise?
No, Downton.
What's shopping with Toby like?
No, this weekend I'm just going to the mall to watch Downton Abbey. They're doing a movie.
Oh, there's a movie. I was like, why
I'm
do
a
you
huge
need to watch
fan.
that at the mall?
I'm a huge fan.
Okay. I thought maybe you just sat there with an iPad and watched it. Just have people around you and you enjoy your iPad while you watch it. Okay. Detroit Youth Choir, AGT Finals. Did you watch it?
I did. And it was like by happen chance, actually. So I've been seeing it everywhere on billboards, and last night I was just scrolling through my phone trying to see when the finals was actually on, and it was like right at that time. So I watched it, and it was they're so good.
Yeah.
They're so good, and they wore this Detroit shirt, and they came second actually.
Did it have the Spirit of Detroit on there? Is that what it was?
Oh yeah.
Great. You were saying that? Yeah.
I felt so proud to be from they're literally from home here.
I know, that's awesome.
And they sang this song that got them to the finals, "Can't Hold Us." I think Macklin.
Oh, the Macklin. Oh,
yeah, and Ryan
someone's
Love.
here. The bell's ringing. Someone's here.
I called it.
Yeah. I wish it was like Mr. Rogers, where they'd actually come to the door and then we'd welcome in and say hello. That was Mr. Rogers, right? Okay. I'm just double checking that I had the correct reference.
Yeah.
But anyways, Youth Choir.
Yeah, they came second. It was great.
That's awesome.
So proud.
All right, and the last thing we're talking about before we get to Anne is LabsCon. So tomorrow we have a really great event. It's everyone at Detroit Labs, a few external folks get together, all at the Jam Handy. It's called. I don't know why it's called that. Do you know why?
No.
Okay, it's the gentleman's name. It's a large.
That's a nice name to have, Jam Handy.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it's like a Muppet show. That's what I thought it was used for. But
looks like,
anyways, it's kind of like an old warehouse. It's really cool. We have 9 different presenters. They're gonna, including you.
Yes.
What's yours gonna be about?
Why digital transformations begin with people.
I like that.
Not technology.
I like that.
I'm excited for it, actually. Something
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, LabsCon's just so cool because everyone gets together. It's like our own little community. It's a lot of fun. It's just sharing a lot of ideas. Everyone gets to have lunch together, sit together for a good amount of time. And anyways, the reason I bring that up, other than it's just really cool, we're going to be going live from LabsCon 3 different times. So we're going to have a little pregame where maybe we can banter a little more than Bill lets us on this one. And then that's going to set us up for 2 other live appearances. We're going to go live like 7 times, but that's a bit much. And we're going to interview the speakers. So we're going on at noon, and then we will go on at 5. And we're going to interview, each time we're going to interview 3 to 4 speakers, have them give us a little bit of information about what they talked about, and then why they chose that topic. So you'll be one of those, and that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Eventually, they will be posted on YouTube, so you also can enjoy in the presentations. And with that, anything else to add for LabsCon?
I'm just excited about it. It's tomorrow. It's been like forever the
That
back
was-
of my mind. So
All right, that was great.
yeah.
And now Anne Cahalan. Hello,
Whoa,
Anne.
look at that
Welcome
entrance.
to the show. That was an entrance, maybe the best ever. How much practice?
Like 4 times.
Nice. Excellent.
Nailed it.
Anne, iOS developer, and we're going to talk about server-side Swift. But before we get into the server side, give us a little history on Swift.
Sure. Swift is Apple's own programming language. They developed it, released it to the world in 2015, I want to say. And it's Apple's first open source thing.
Yeah, that's kind of
developed-
surprising. Normally they're so secret.
That's
Yeah.
not the sort of thing they do. That they developed the language, got it to a certain point, open sourced it, so now people can contribute to it. In fact, one of the engineers here at Detroit Labs, John Shire, contributed the result type to the Swift
Yeah, that was
language.
very
really
cool.
cool. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And if correct me if I'm wrong here, and Toby might have to help out on the technical side today. Swift was quite a bit easier to learn than jumping into like Objective-C in the past,
I
right?
thought so.
You thought so? Okay.
I was very early days of learning Objective-C when they announced Swift, and I'm not going to say I completely threw Objective-C away and started learning Swift, but it was a pretty close thing.
Awesome.
It's
Agreed.
I think it's a little more accessible of a language to pick up, and it syntactically and just like appearance-wise looks a little bit like friendlier languages like Ruby and Python, stuff like that feels a little more accessible.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah, I say like it just cut a lot of the redundancy away from Objective-C, I felt.
yeah, it streamlines things a lot.
And that's primarily when it launched. It was front end, right? Apps. We call
Yeah,
it
it
apps
was- it-
front end.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was mostly for app development on iOS platforms, so iPhone apps, Mac OS, TV OS, and watches when that came along. It was sort of more purpose-built for that sort of thing out of the gate.
So when we say apps, we talk about front end, but
Yeah.
today we're talking about server
Server
side,
side.
and that's the back end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the difference for the people who never really had this fully defined, if you think about front end and the split between front end and back end, the front end is what is talking to you, the user. It's the part that you interact with. So the web page or the app or whatever it is where the user is actually pressing the buttons or doing some other interaction. The back end is the part that talks to the data, that talks to your database, that handles and massages all of your data before it gets presented to the front end.
I like that example. That's pretty easy to
Yeah.
digest. Okay, so I was talking to somebody the other day, and they had mentioned that back end development seemed really scary until they got into it, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, this is very similar.
Yeah, it can be. And that's kind of what led me into looking into server-side Swift in the first place. Working in sort of like client services stuff like Detroit Labs does, a lot of times the back end is not something that we've built or that we've created. It's something that gets handed to us from, the company already has it built. There's another third party that's working on that. And in my experience, there's kind of this wall where you see the sort of front part of the API, the interface that you're able to access, and then whatever's happening on the other side of it is completely opaque. It's happening. Some other developers are doing it. They're making compromises or handling weird data situations or like all kinds of things like that we don't ever get to see. We see the end result sort of facade of it and run into bits where things aren't working exactly the way we want them to, or it's not as conveniently created for an iPhone app as we'd want it to be. And I spent a lot of time sort of like, God, why are they doing these dumb things?
Right.
And then a lot of time reminding myself, these aren't, like, nobody's making a dumb decision.
Sure.
They're making a decision under constraints that I don't know.
Yes.
So one of the things that motivated me when I started looking into server-side Swift was like, let me find out what some of these constraints are. Let's find out what some of these compromises you have to make when you're going from some sort of data backend to the API you're serving up to an app to make buttons quack or whatever.
Sure. Quack.
So do like Swift make server-side development more approachable for you? Do you mean?
Yeah, because a lot of times those backend, like that stuff is done in Java or PHP. Sometimes there's a
.NET.
JavaScript framework that's being used. It's something that I'm not as familiar with. This is all Swift. I know what Swift code looks like. I can dive in and start poking around at stuff. And that just makes it a lot more approachable and kind of knock down some of those walls for me.
So immediately you were able to demonstrate a little bit of empathy with
God, yeah.
understanding what was going on in the back end
Yeah.
versus the front end, and not have as much friction going back and forth.
Yeah.
Or butting heads or whatever it is.
Yeah, that
So-
was pretty cool.
So when we were talking, and you'll have to correct me here, we were talking about there was a couple different frameworks that
Yeah.
you had mentioned.
There's there's a handful of frameworks, but there are two big ones that are sort of like rising to the most use and the most
The creme de
attention
la
at the
creme.
moment. Kitura and Vapor, and they're really interesting because they do a lot of the same stuff, but they do it sort of with a different philosophy behind each one, and I think that's a really interesting thing. Kitura was built by IBM, open sourced after a certain period of time, but so it's open source now, but it wasn't at the start.
So it wasn't like intentionally built to be open source.
Vapor was open source from the jump. It was an open source project to begin with. And that led to some, like, it wouldn't surprise you, Kitura is built by IBM. It kind of feels a little more enterprisey. It's got a little more, it's a little more conservative approach. It values things like stability and backwards compatibility. Vapor is not quite the Wild West, but it's a little more aggressive in, for example, as the Swift language evolves, and it has been evolving over the years. Vapor is a little more willing to jump on a new feature maybe before it's fully mature, whereas Kitura is going to take a slower and more conservative approach.
So which one did you pick?
I picked Vapor.
Why
Okay.
did you pick Vapor?
Well, it goes back to that philosophical difference. Kitura is, like I said, it's more conservative, and it is taking ideas and patterns and like sort of syntactical sugar and like things like that from more traditional web-based back-end languages. And it also is within its own sort of structure. It's not all using Swift in what it's built in. Whereas Vapor is like Swift right down to its socks. Everything in Vapor is written in Swift. It is like every bit of it. And the code patterns and the sort of design ideas and idioms that you use when you're writing code for Vapor is a lot more Swifty. It's kind of a, I don't know.
I don't know what
fuzzy
that means,
little
but I know
thing,
Toby
but-
does. So if he's nodding yes, I'm like, oh yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's a fuzzy little thing, but it is when you're learning something new, or at least for me. I have a lot easier time when it is something that is close to something I already know. So to be able to look at a new kind of functionality or a new sort of pattern and be like, oh no, this kind of looks like something I'm already familiar with, it's going to sort of in my head hook onto those things and sort of
So
move forward.
So you talked about how Swift, like compared to Objective C, it made it easier for people to pick it up to
Yeah.
learn. Would you say it is the same way when you're talking about backend and Vapor? Does it make it easier, or is it just more familiar to you?
I think the familiarity is what makes it easier.
Okay.
Like I said, it connects to something you already know. You're not trying to learn new patterns, learn new almost ideas and approaches to how you're going to organize your code and things like that. It fits in with what you already know. About a year or so ago, I had the opportunity here at Labs to contribute a little bit to a project in Kotlin. And Kotlin looks a lot like Swift and feels a lot like Swift in a lot of ways, but the design patterns and structure of an Android app is very different than from an iOS app. And it wasn't the syntax I was having a hard time with. It was like where you put your code. How do you think about moving this data around? That was harder for me to do than just learning new like buttons to press in a particular order. And with server-side Swift, you're even with Kitura, which is a little different, but not wildly so. You're following the same patterns you already know. Like it feels comfortable, even if you're learning new syntax or new, like I said, new buttons to press in a different order.
Now, if I wasn't a Swift developer, let's just say Java, I mean, I guess you would know some backend potentially if it's Java, but is server-side Swift still something that's attractive to somebody that hasn't spent years in Swift?
I would think so. I did a little research preparing for this into what is cool about server-side Swift other than it's in Swift, which was the coolest part for me. And both Kitura and Vapor in benchmark tests that they've done beat Node.js, for example, by a lot. in terms of like handling latency and also the number of like requests per second they can handle. There was a graphic I saw where it was like Go obviously was the best one, and then it was like Vapor, and then I forget what the middle one was, Kitura, and then like the line just went way down to everybody else running way slower. So it is performance-wise, there are some gains to using server-side or using one of the server-side Swift frameworks as well.
Have you used it yet, Toby?
No, I think I watched a talk about it, and it was when it first came out. Really, I think it was about Vapor. I'm trying to remember. I think that was in 2018 or something. Yeah. But I never got a chance to experiment.
One of the things I think is one of the other sort of arguments I think for using something like server-side Swift when you're building like a middleware or a back-end front, especially if you have control over the whole process, if you own the data all the way up to the front end of where you're serving it to somebody, you don't need a bunch of different developers with a bunch of different like language backgrounds or skill sets. You can
you
with
get closer to full
smaller
stack
team.
at that point, don't
Yeah,
you?
you really are. And both, if you think about in web terms, both Kitura and Vapor have web frameworks that handle. So you're writing web page code in Swift, and it's Kitura uses Stencil, Vapor uses one called Leaf, and it's pretty cool when you can just like write some Swift code with very little, like couple of HTML tags thrown in there, and all of a sudden you have a web page. That's
really cool.
Feels a little magical.
And also, like from when you compared Kitura and Vapor, different approaches, of course, in philosophy. Vapor being open source from day one, are there any particular advantages of having a project open source that it has over like the standard enterprise kind of stuff?
One thing that Vapor I think has, and that's another reason why I looked at that one, I started playing around with that one first, was like I said, they jump on when the Swift language changes, and the Swift is still fairly dynamic. It's stable at least, but there's still a lot of changes and growth that's coming every year with every new release. Vapor is a little more aggressive about incorporating those new language features into their framework. Whereas Kitura tends to be a little more conservative about that and are gonna not sort of rock the boat too much if they have something that works. Vapor is a little more willing to be like, oh, hey, we have new toys. Let's see how we can fit them in, and maybe it'll break something else, but we'll figure it out. And I think that's kind of fun.
So if you're a Swift developer already, how do you get into this? Like, how did you start? Books, talks, what was it?
If you're a Swift developer already, then you do what every Swift developer does when they want to learn something new, and you go to Ray Wenderlich's site. Ray Wenderlich has
started.
I'm looking at Jeff over here to see if he agrees, because I don't know what that is, but he gives us a thumbs up, so it's fantastic.
Ray Wenderlich is a great site that has tutorials for every single thing you could want to do. Everything, yeah.
I think they have Android now, even.
Yeah, they have Android. They've got some Unity.
Is it free
too.
or do you pay for it?
Mix of free and there's some pay stuff.
Yeah, but like the pay stuff's actually worth it. I remember buying a couple books when I started iOS back in the day. So good.
So great.
Yeah.
I joke around a lot about that. I need the Ray Wenderlich guide to being an adult. Like, it's a Ray Wenderlich tutorial on my taxes.
Toby's working on it. Don't worry.
Actually,
that'd be great. But yeah, Ray Wenderlich has, they have a video course for each platform, and they also have book series for each platform, so you can sort of pick which one you want to do. And they also have a couple of really interesting articles that I got some of my notes here from on why you would pick one over the other, and like the advantages of each one. They
specifically the frameworks, they talk about that too. That's cool.
So, and it sort of comes down to what I said, like what are you more comfortable with? Do you need something that's going to be more stable, or you want something that's more Swifty? Just sort of pick whichever fits with your personal philosophy of life, I guess. Hacking with Swift, Paul Hudson's site also has same sort of thing, tutorials on each side. And Vapor specifically has Vapor University, which just collates articles and blog posts and tutorials and conference talks about Vapor, and you can just sort of dive in there and sort by, I want to watch a video on this, and it'll serve up some great stuff for you.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Where do you see, just curious, where do you see server-side Swift going? Do you think it was just like a cool thing that people want to dabble, or do you think it's going to compete with like Node.js or something like that?
It definitely started out, I think, as something that was like, Apple gave us some new toys, let's see what we can make. But Kitura, for example, like Mercedes-Benz uses Kitura as its backend in some of its applications. There's a couple of companies, I'm blanking on the names right now. Nodes is one of them. that use Vapor. Vapor just launched Vapor Cloud, which is a hosting service. It's kind of like Rails developers have Heroku that they can put their stuff on.
Okay.
You can host your stuff on the Vapor Cloud service. I think it'll be really interesting to see. I think they're both ready for prime time, ready for like actual production use. The one thing about server-side Swift that really is interesting to me, they've gotten Swift to run on Android devices. Like, hello world, but nothing really robust yet. But everybody's sort of chasing this cross-platform holy grail. Where
constant strive for cross-platform.
Everybody hops on React Native a couple years ago and then
Kotlin Native
jumps
off. If you have something like server-side Swift and you can write your back-end code and your Mac or iOS app and your website and maybe someday your Android app as well, now you've got that. I mean, that's it. That's the dream, right? Just write one thing, or
you don't need that cross-compiler.
That's sort of one team. Like another advantage, like your teams can like review each other's code. Like someone on the front end can review back end, and then you can cross-train people from different teams to another team. So
good point. All right, Anne, you speak all around the world.
Great talks.
You are constantly. You were in the UK.
Yeah.
Or I don't even know where else.
I was in New York last week at the Try Swift conference.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was in Pittsburgh for abstractions, and then earlier this year I was at UIConf in Berlin.
Wow.
And coming up in November, I'll be giving a talk on dependency injection at Mobile Era in Oslo.
Wow,
in
that's
Oslo.
really
Oh,
because a great time to go to Norway is November.
Well, Billy
Say
went
hi
to Norway.
Magnus Carlsen for me.
I will.
Yeah.
Billy said it's beautiful and can give you lots of recommendations.
Yeah, I was in Oslo for NDC Oslo last summer, and I got to go up to Tromsø and do the 24 hours of daylight.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
which
so
is
cool.
weird.
I was going to say that's got to be
there was one night where,
mind-blowing.
like at 3 a.m, I woke up to get a drink of water, and I'm like, I'm gonna go outside. It was terrifying.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I'm hoping to get up there while I'm in Oslo, like run up to the Arctic and see the Northern Lights and 24 hours of darkness too.
That is so great.
Awesome. All right, if you're in, was it Oslo?
Oslo.
And you were just in Berlin.
Yep.
So if you're in Oslo, go see Anne speak. We won't be there, unfortunately.
I
We'd
wish
love to
I
be
could
I could
go.
probably work something out.
Yeah.
I wish. That's the chess capital of the world.
Wait, Oslo's the chess capital of the world?
Norway. That's where a world champion is from.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But does that make it the chess capital just because the world champion's from there?
Does the chess capital change with the champion?
No, the
Yeah,
whole
break
country
this
is
down
so
for us.
small that they follow chess so much that chess is on like primetime TV.
Oh.
That doesn't happen
That
here.
is your dream.
Yeah, that's
I was
like
gonna say Norway also has that like slow TV where it's just a train journey for 8 hours, or somebody knitting a sweater all day. I think Norwegian TV is a little different than what we have over here.
She
Good
just
TV.
she just bashed chess.
Oh no.
All right. Thank you, Anne, for joining us.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
This was fun.
I want to say thank you to the entire team that puts us on. A lot of work. Dave, who you didn't even have to talk much today at all.
Nope.
With your new mic.
Quiet day for Dave, but a lot of hard work. Got our new mics going, which is
Mhm.
fantastic.
Those are pretty cool.
We have a wonderful studio audience, which was great. They applauded when Anne came on. Not sure if that comes through in the mics, but an engaging studio audience. Don't forget, subscribe, bell icon to be notified, but also we will be live at LabsCon tomorrow. I think the first pregame will be about 9:15 a.m., so if you hit the bell icon, you'll be notified when we're live. You'll get notified at noon, and you'll get notified at 5. So, again, we're just going to recap some of the presenters, what they talked about, why they wanted to talk about that topic, and then that'll kind of foreshadow some presentations that'll eventually be available on YouTube. So, again, every 2 weeks, Thursday, 3 p.m., calendar permitting.
Yep.
And that's
Oh.
it.
Could have a road show someday.
Roadshow? We're going to go technically we're going to have one tomorrow, Toby.
We
We will be
That's
literally
our
in a different
first.
location tomorrow. So roadshow tomorrow. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
See ya.